welcome to Labour Lens. I am Sharon Ijason. Recently, the Non-Academic Staff Union of Universities, NASU, threatened to embark on a nationwide action owing to the fact that the government is yet to meet up with the collective bargaining agreement it freely signed into for about 7 years and counting. We also have stories for you. We will be right back.
Nigeria made history in 1960 in Africa when it ratified some ILO conventions. Between then and now, it has ratified 40 of the organization's conventions. All member nations of ILO have the obligation under the statutes to bring their labor laws in conformity with any ratified convention. This explains recent collaborative efforts among all key actors in the labor movement. The Occupational Safety and Health Bill, the NSITF Bill, Collective Labor Relations Bill, Labor Institutions Bill, the NDE Act, and the MPC Act are among bills under scrutiny. Labour and Employment Minister says there is no doubting government's commitment at having labour laws reviewed to meet international best practices.
We have 3 members' bills initiated in the National Assembly. There is a bill on casualization of workers at work, a bill that wants the stoppage and ill-treatment of Nigerian workers through yellow dog employment.
Organized labor and the private sector employers union are united in their commitment to having human-friendly labor laws.
As workers representative, we know that some of the laws are very obsolete, and basically employment relationship is dynamic, and there are also emerging issues. There are new issues of brought about by technological advancement, where the traditional relationship between employer and employee have been brought to question, and I think those progressive processes were taken should be able to address those gaps. And
I want to appeal to every one of us to make maximum use of this opportunity to produce a document that will address some of the causes of tension in the industrial sector.
Here starting with the national assignment, which includes reviews of laws, some of which have been in existence since 1971, the Labour Act, for instance. And the lifespan of every law should be 10 years.
In the next 2 days, all the labour laws in focus will be dissected, inputs taken before they are sent to the National Assembly for approval and presidential assent thereafter.
Another set of public workers under the Kaduna state government set to be disengaged from the service. This time it will be at least 233 public school teachers, which the authorities say presented fake certificates at a certificate verification exercise early this year. Their files will also be forwarded to the Ministry of Justice to initiate prosecution for forgery.
So far, the board has verified 451 certificates by contacting the institutions that awarded the certificates. 9 of the 13 institutions contacted have responded as of today. The board will dismiss 233 teachers who presented these fake certificates, while their files will be forwarded to the Ministry of Justice to initiate prosecution for forgery.
This latest disengagement will bring the total number of sacked public school teachers to at least 22,000 in 4 years. The government, on the other hand, says it recruited at least 25,000 teachers to strengthen the education sector. Another issue of controversy is the competency test, which the government is set to conduct for primary school teachers in the state. While the teachers have resolutely rejected this, the authorities insist the competency test will be carried out.
The board will follow up on the competency test with series of training programs organized in batches for teachers. This will begin in January 2022.
The SUBEB chairman says the board will continue to check the integrity of public school teachers to ensure that the profession is not devalued.
I think the federal government, it has been their habits of a nonchalant attitude in recognizing, going into agreements with the labor movement And after the agreement, they decided to neglect without even going back to what they have agreed on a round table. And let me talk from the perspective of where I come from, which is a research institution. We have collective bargaining on our issues of 65 years of retirement age, 53.37 of arrears, and the issue of having a NARICOM that will be an organizing body of all research institutions in Nigeria. And up till today, nothing has been done. Presently, we have been on 5 weeks strike now, and I think the government should take it seriously when entering into a beginning or when entering into a discussion with the labor to fulfill their own side of it. Once the labor movement, we have agreed to meet with them and to come at a conclusion, what is the way forward?
The major problems of this administration is they don't honor agreement entered between them and the unions. And this is very dangerous in our system. And the government as employer of labor should be able to honor agreement entered, because they entered that agreement willingly without any difficulty. So to us, one of the major problems is not only the signing of agreement, but they don't honor agreement. And government should be sincere to its employees. Let me say one thing that people should note, that workers are the engine room for development. Apart from being the engine room for development, they are the most effective tools for change and development. So if you don't have a vibrant and virile working class, there is no way the country will develop. So therefore, the most important thing is to ensure that the workers are given what they deserve in terms of their remuneration, employment, and other entitlements. And this is the only way Nigeria can develop.
Nigerian workers are facing serious hardship due to lack of respecting this agreement entered with. That of just recently, Nigerian university and inter-university centers were on strike, and government invited them for a meeting. They have entered an agreement, a memorandum of understanding, and despite the timeline contained in that MOA, still government are playing double standard and are playing games, and it is not portraying the good image of this administration that came to be with the slogan of positive change and next level. So Nigerian university workers and inter-university workers are seriously facing difficulties on how to cater for their family and motivated to go to work. And this is portraying bad image of Buhari administration. Frankly speaking, the Minister of Labour have still thrown the ball back to Ministry of Education and Federal Ministry of Education and National University Commission. But we are still disappointed where simple agreements are entered, strike are suspended based on that trust, but later there is not that will to implement such agreement. So I don't know where we are heading to.
On the profile interview segment this week, I will be speaking with the General Secretary of NASU, Comrade Peters Adeyemi. He spoke about the several challenges that NASU is faced with and also spoke about the recommendations that arose after the National Executive Council meeting held recently. It's good to have you on the program.
Thank you for having me.
Recently, NASU had its NEC meeting, and there were lots of recommendations and also observations and a recap of the challenges and prospects in the education sector, vis-a-vis on how it affects workers and Nigerians at large. Very quickly, there's been reports of strikes, notice of strikes, and there's some unions or some of your units that are actually currently on strike. Now, the argument is there are lots of agreements that has been reached before now that government freely entered into, and they are yet to implement or meet up on the other side of the bargain. How would you react to this?
Yeah, it's quite unfortunate because one of our strong motivation as Nigerians, even though in the trade union, is that we must support our country to survive economically, politically, and otherwise. But we regret that even our level of patriotism and our level of feelings for our country has been taken for granted by those in government to mean stupidity. A union like NASU had combined trade unionism with fairness in the way we transact trade union business. We are not a union. We are not a union that just decide to disrupt services at any point in time. We have been very methodical. We have been very dispassionate, and we have been very considerate. It's not that we are trying to blow our trumpet. We are one union that have endeavored to follow all the due processes as enshrined in every existing labor laws in this country before we embark on strike.
With your years of experience practicing trade unionism in Nigeria and abroad, looking at the body language of government when it comes to meeting up with demands, what do you think needs to be done? What style needs to be adopted to get results?
I think is to try as much as possible to apprehend strikes before they happen. The attitude right now is so like Kaduna, and there is this nonchalance approach that we aggravate industrial crisis in this country. It's not going to mitigate the level of industrial crisis, but it will aggravate it. And for the chief conciliator, who is the Federal Minister of Labor and Employment, he needed to be assisted by agencies that are direct employers of the workers. I have seen that the current sitting Minister of Labor has been very active in his attempts to apprehend or to get strikes reduced considerably. But the manners and the attitudes of ministers, PAMSECs, and heads of all those institutions that are supposed to support the efforts of the Ministry of Labor and the minister have been completely absent. So what I'm saying in effect is that if unions file notice of dispute, or if unions write to the ministry about some issues, the ministry should be able, after consulting with the direct employers of the staff affected, provide the needed data and information and call the unions. Call the unions. I have not seen any trade union in Nigeria who is a madman, no, or a mad woman. But there is something that currently happens which will continue to aggravate industrial crisis in our respective sector. It is this way of ignoring unions. Ignoring unions. Unions will put a complaint right to either the minister in charge of their members, their institution. They won't even get a reply, no custody of a reply. And one of the things that angers members of the union most is for the leadership to go and say, we have written to government and we have not gotten any response. I give you a typical example. The ongoing strike in the research institutes in Nigeria, that is being prosecuted by NASU, Asuri, and Saturai. 4 years ago, we got an MOU from the government signed to by the Minister of Labor and the current Minister of Labor, the then Minister of Agriculture, Audu Ogbe, the PAMSEC, Federal Ministry of Science and Tech, and a host of other heads of parastatals within the sector, to say that the issues, particularly the one that has to do with payment of 12-month arrears to our members, will be dealt with within 6 weeks. 6 weeks is 4 years. So we tell them we have achieved this. In 6 weeks, this will happen. In 6 months, it doesn't happen. In 1 year, it doesn't happen. In 2 years, it doesn't happen. The members became very angry to say, so this MOU is just signed to deceive us, to suspend the strike. I think that one other thing that needed to be done is, if you sign an MOA or an MOU with unions and with timelines, and you are not able to meet up with those timelines, it makes sense for government to call back the unions. Call back the unions and explain to them that, look, we have this MOU with you, but for reason A, B, C, D, the 6 weeks we promise you cannot hold. The union leaders will then know, because they will hear from government why that 6 weeks cannot hold. They go back to their members. The way it is now is that when there is a strike, the government will just call meetings and enter into an MOU to get the unions to suspend strike. And when the strike are suspended, nothing happened to the MOU and the MOE.
Okay, now, moving forward, the payment platform that has been chosen by the government, your union says has passed a vote of no confidence on this payment platform. Why would you have this?
It's very unfortunate also that the government just used the IPPIS, to just shortchange our members. It's very, very unfortunate. And the spirit with which we keyed into the IPs is the spirit with which we wanted to partner with the federal government, to fight corruption. And of course, we did it in goodwill. We wanted to be sure that if actually there are ghost workers, there are issues that will affect the processes, that nobody hides under payment of salaries from anywhere to cheat government. And we got assurances from government on a whole range of issues. We got assurances from government on a whole range of issues. And unfortunately for us, IPPIS has failed completely. They have changed our members. We have situations where some members' salaries were not paid at all. Some that were paid were short paid. And so on and so forth. And every report that we have made to the IPs to deal with this matter, we have not gotten any positive response. A whole lot of problems. And we have reported to them. It seems as if they are lacking capacity to deal with those issues. And if you look at it, virtually every union in the tertiary institution has one complaint or the other. We cannot allow ourselves and our members to continue to be shortchanged. And we cannot allow government to use us as guinea pigs for experimentation for years. That's unacceptable. They told us when they wanted to key us into IPs that everything that our members receive will be paid to them in full. When they started experimenting with our members' pay. That is clearly unacceptable to us. It must stop. If it doesn't stop, they can't stop us from taking action. In this country, we have a right. We are citizens of this country. We have a right. We have a right to complain. We have a right to ask that something that is not working well works well. If our leaders are not ready to listen, they should resign. And let people who will listen take over from them. Let me give you one example. Minister of Agriculture. Mr. Shanono. We wrote him before this strike started and before President Buhari removed him from office. We wrote him to say there is a looming strike action in the Research Institute. Honorable Minister, grant us audience so that we can tell you what is the problem. Grant us audience, grant the unions in the research sector audience so that the guy said unions are troublemakers. He's not ready to meet with us. So if we go back and tell our members that the minister that is supposed to solve our problem is calling us troublemakers, how would they react to it? I think when I heard that the president removed him, I was happy. I commended the president for removing that type of man who doesn't know his left from his right.
Very quickly, the implementation of the Orosanye report as regards the rationalization and the restructuring of workers. Will this favor the workers from...
the answer is no.
And how many jobs do you think will be lost if this is implemented?
The answer will be essentially no. Essentially no in the sense that you first of all ask yourself, for almost 8, 9, 10 years, that committee had finished its work and submitted this report to government. Why is it that government have not been able to take that action? Up till now, when the tenure of the sitting president is running to an end. The truth of the matter is that when you talked about merging institutions, have you set machinery in motion to address the confusion that will crop up in the process? And we are convinced that from our experiences in the past, this action is just directed to sending able-bodied workers into the unemployment market. Forget about all these theoretical presentations by those in government that not a single person will lose his job. It's a lie. It's a lie. It cannot work. It is not true. How do you merge EFCC with ICPC and you say the thing will work and that nobody will lose his job? You have two chairmen I'm just using them as an example. You have two chairmen who are made chairman by their own right. So if you are going to merge the two institutions, are you going to allow the two of them to remain as chairman? One has to step down for the other. And the implication of that is that it's a job lost.
So how can it be better managed? Is there another investigation, another panel that actually needs to be set up for more coordination?
The problem is not about merger of institutions. The problem is that government has refused to look inwardly as to how loopholes for wasteful spending can be plugged. Wasteful spending. Nigerian has agitated severally about the humongous pay that is going on at the National Assembly. Nothing has happened. Nigerians have been lectured severally about the fact that some MDAs have refused to remit what they are supposed to remit to the Federation account. Nobody has been brought to book to say, look, you are supposed to have remitted this and this. And the other dangerous dimension is that government is stylishly, unconstitutionally encouraging those who are evading payments to the Federation account from what they generate by saying that they should go and start constructing roads. Constructing roads, under what standard? How do you determine that the quantum of what they are owing is going to be equal to the cost of the roads you are asking them to construct? So my thinking is that government should look inwardly rather than merging institutions and causing a lot of confusion, and in the process, knowing by the corrupt nature of our people in this country, they will take advantage of this merger thing to also enrich themselves. What is going to be the factor that will determine who will stay in the new organization, who will head the new organization, who will go to another place? What are the criteria? They have not been spelled out. And why is it that the major legacy that this president is going to leave behind is that this president, President Muhammadu Buhari, has refused since he came to office to retrench workers. But some busybody in this government wanted to use this Orange report and mergers to get that good legacy to be obliterated. Because in this process, this government will surely retrench workers. And we are against that. We are opposed to the so-called merger of institutions. Government can streamline those. If those institutions are not necessary in the first instance, why were they established? Why were they established? So what we say from our own angle is that the merger is unnecessary. It's a deliberate attempt to send able-bodied workers into the unemployment market. We don't even trust those who are going to handle it. They will use every opportunity to enrich themselves. And at the end of the day, it's Nigerian workers that will be at the losing end.
Thank you very much for your time.
It's my pleasure.
And that's all we can take on today's edition of the program. Join us next week for a fresh edition of the show. I am Sharon Ijason. Thanks for watching, and remember that labor creates wealth.